What if I told you that the roots of modern political science weren't planted by saints or philosophers in ivory towers, but by a man who was exiled, distrusted, and even accused of conspiracy? What if the foundation of political realism, the idea that power often trumps virtue, was laid not by idealists, but by someone unafraid to say that morality and politics don't always mix? That man was Niccolò Machiavelli, and for centuries, scholars have debated whether he deserves the lofty title, the father of political science. Today, we're diving deep into that claim. Welcome to Unfolding Journey, where we explore timeless texts and ideas that continue to shape our world. Whether you're a history buff, a student of politics, or someone who enjoys intellectual storytelling, you've found your tribe. If that sounds like you, make sure to subscribe and stick around till the end. Now, let's unfold the truth behind Machiavelli's legacy. Before we decide whether Machiavelli deserves the title father of political science, we need to understand who he was and what made his voice so radical. Born in Florence in 1469, Machiavelli lived through one of the most turbulent times in Italian history. The Italian peninsula was not a unified country, but a patchwork of warring city-states, constantly under threat from foreign powers like France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. Florence itself oscillated between republicanism and autocracy, between the rule of merchant families like the Medici and radical preachers like Savonarola. Machiavelli was a diplomat and civil servant for the Florentine Republic. But when the Medici returned to power, he was arrested, tortured, and exiled. It was during this period of political isolation that he wrote his most famous work, The Prince, a text that changed political thought forever. Unlike the thinkers before him, Plato, Augustine, Aquinas, Machiavelli wasn't concerned with how politics ought to be. He wanted to describe politics as it was. And that shift alone marks the beginning of a more scientific, empirical approach to politics. To judge whether Machiavelli qualifies as a father of political science, we need to define what political science actually is. A science, in this context, doesn't just mean lab coats and beakers. It means a systematic study grounded in observation, analysis, and repeatable patterns. Political science looks at how power works, how governments operate, how decisions are made, and how people are governed, not based on ideals, but on realities. Pre-Machiavellian political thought was largely normative, concerned with how rulers should behave. Think of Plato's Philosopher King, or Augustine's City of God. Politics was often intertwined with morality or theology, judged by ideals of justice, virtue, or divine law. Machiavelli broke from that tradition. He replaced idealism with realism. He was one of the first to argue that if you want to understand politics, you need to study human nature as it is, not as it should be. That, in many ways, is the essence of political science. What truly sets Machiavelli apart are the methods he used to analyze power. He didn't base his ideas solely on religious doctrine or abstract philosophy. He based them on empirical evidence, what he had seen in the courts of Italy, what he had read in the histories of ancient Rome, and what he observed in human behavior. In The Prince and Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli draws from contemporary politics, like the rise of Cesare Borgia, classical history, like Roman republics and empires, human psychology, notions of fear, ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. He observed that rulers who succeeded were often not the most virtuous, but the most adaptable. That peace was often maintained not through kindness, but through calculated fear. That religion, while socially useful, was often a tool for manipulation. This observational, pattern-based thinking was a major departure from earlier thinkers and resembles the kind of logic we find in modern social sciences. He asked, what actually works? Not, what should work if people were perfect? That's the birth of political realism, and arguably political science itself. Let's compare Machiavelli to earlier political thinkers to understand the revolution he sparked. Plato imagined a utopia ruled by philosopher kings, wise, rational rulers guided by reason and truth. Augustine viewed politics through a Christian lens, emphasizing divine will and the moral duties of rulers. Thomas Aquinas synthesized Christian theology with Aristotelian logic, promoting politics as a means to achieve moral and spiritual good. These thinkers all tied politics to ethics, religion, or metaphysics. Machiavelli, by contrast, separated politics from morality. In his famous quote, he wrote, "A prince never lacks legitimate reasons to break his promise." To him, success in politics was not about being good. It was about being effective. That meant lying, betraying, even killing, if it ensured the survival of the state. This radical separation of politics from virtue is why many religious and moral philosophers condemned him. The term Machiavellian still connotes cunning, deceit, and ruthlessness. But ironically, it's this honesty, this stripping away of illusions, that makes him scientific. He's not telling rulers how to be good. He's telling them how to survive. Machiavelli's insights continue to echo in political discourse even today. Let's look at a few of them. Power is maintained through perception. It's better to appear good than to be good, because people judge by appearances. Fear is more reliable than love. A feared ruler is less likely to be betrayed, so long as he avoids being hated. Fortune favors the bold. Success in politics often goes to those with virtue, a combination of courage, cunning, and adaptability. Institutions matter. In Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli emphasizes the importance of republican institutions and the rule of law for long-term stability. These ideas, while sometimes unsettling, form the core of political realism. They're the basis for theories in international relations, diplomacy, security studies, and even business strategy. From Henry Kissinger to Sun Tzu comparisons, from corporate boardrooms to campaign war rooms, Machiavelli is always lurking in the background. Of course, not everyone agrees that Machiavelli should be called the father of political science. Some argue that his work lacks the systematic methodology of later political theorists like Hobbes, Locke, or Rousseau. Others point out that Machiavelli was not writing dispassionately. He had a personal stake in Florentine politics and wasn't always objective. Additionally, his writings were sometimes vague or inconsistent. The Prince and Discourses appear to advocate different systems, monarchy versus republic. Still, even these criticisms acknowledge his pioneering role. Like an early scientist working without a lab, Machiavelli didn't have the benefit of modern tools. But he began asking the right questions and looking for answers in the real world. And that's what a founder does. So, does Machiavelli deserve the title father of political science? If we define political science as the empirical, realistic study of power, governance, and human behavior in political contexts, then yes, he absolutely does. He was the first to challenge the idea that politics must follow the path of morality. He analyzed rulers not as ideal beings, but as flawed humans operating in a flawed world. He used history, psychology, and experience to draw conclusions that were often harsh, but undeniably true. Machiavelli didn't give us the tools to become better people. He gave us the tools to become better politicians. And in doing so, he laid the intellectual groundwork for every political strategist, theorist, and realist who followed. He may not have worn a crown or sat in a university chair, but in the realm of political thought, he rules still. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the mind of Niccolò Machiavelli, a thinker both feared and revered, hated and admired. If this sparked your interest in the gritty side of political history, give this video a thumbs up. It helps us reach more curious minds like yours. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Unfolding Journey for more deep dives into the ideas and individuals who have shaped our world, often in ways we never expected. Until next time, question deeply, think boldly, and keep unfolding the journey.